The president and three of his top military leaders presenting different stories. General Jack Keane, a retired four-star general, joins me now. General, it looks to me like the generals, the other generals, completely undercut the president. Is that how you see it?
Well, what I see it is they gave voice to testimony yesterday to something that's been widely reported, and that is that the Secretary of Defense and the entire chain of command below him, going all the way down to the commander of our forces in Afghanistan, all recommended to maintain a modest force in Afghanistan, and they were able to explain to the president, that was the other benefit of this testimony as it came out, that not only did they make that recommendation, but they explained to the president what the risks were and what the consequences were. As General McKenzie clearly pointed out, that the consequence is it could lead to the collapse of the Afghan government and security forces and the takeover of the Taliban of the country. And General Milley went actually further and described what has happened as a strategic failure which has damaged the credibility of the United States worldwide. So the fact that the American people heard that yesterday, I think, was very important to understand the advice and counsel that the President of the United States was getting. He made this decision largely on his own, is what it comes down here.
So now what?
Stuart, and he owns it.
Yeah, he owns it. But will he own it publicly? Will he? He should, I think, take responsibility for what happened after this testimony. You agree with that?
Oh, I definitely agree with that, but I don't think, based on the pattern we've seen so far, Stuart, I don't think he's going to do that at all. I think he still will deflect responsibility, try to blame the previous administration as much as possible, and then blame it on conditions that are outside his control. He is not going to accept that responsibility. But that's why we have elections, Stuart.
That is true, General. Very true indeed. I'm going to change the subject slightly. I'm sure you've seen this. The outspoken Marine officer, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller, he went viral with blasting the military leaders over the Afghan withdrawal. Right. He's now been sent to solitary confinement ahead of his trial. General, his parents were on Fox this morning and talked about this. Roll tape, please.
Yes, he knew he was going to go there for the principled stand he took, but I'm telling you right now, he does not deserve to be in prison.
He has served valiantly. He has deserved his right to speak. And he only spoke because what he saw happening in Kabul was, he couldn't take it.
General Keane, should he be in prison, solitary confinement, awaiting trial?
I don't know what the rationale is that somebody who spoke out like he did would be locked up for some reason. I mean, listen, so our audience understands when you join the military, you give up certain civil liberties. Free speech is one of those civil liberties that you're giving up. You cannot undermine the chain of command. That leads to chaos and breaks down good order and discipline, which our units have to have. So therefore, if you do that, it's punishable. And that is what he is facing. And I have been told that he was given many, many warnings before the Marine Corps leadership began to take action. Why he's isolated and put in a brig, so to speak, waiting a trial makes no sense to me. I mean, certainly he's not a flight risk, and he's not going to do harm. He has a strong view, and he's entitled to that view, but there are also consequences for having that view inside the military in terms of our good order and discipline.
Got it. General Keane, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir. We'll see you again soon.